Howdy, welcome folks to our Senior Next Step presentation. Mr. Figueroa is going to kick us off with a little welcome there. Mr. Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Mankey. Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for taking the time to tune into our senior post-secondary presentation. So senior year, it's a big year, not only for students, but for parents as well. There's a lot of uncertainty. What's my next step? How am I going to get there? How am I going to pay for it? And that's totally okay to be or feel uncertain. Us as the senior team, we're dedicated to helping students. We're dedicated to helping parents to taking some action this year. And so I want to take a quick moment to introduce the senior team. My name is David Figueroa. I'm the senior counselor for students A through LE, as well as multilingual students. My counterpart, Kate Schock, is the senior counselor for students LF through Z, the later part of the alphabet. We also have Mr. Mankey, McHenry's very first college and career counselor. And lastly, I also want to introduce a very special guest all the way from 15 minutes away at MCC. We have Kristen Mueller.
All right, off to me for the next part of the show here. I'm going to take a moment and pull my counterparts backstage here. So we thank you again for joining us today. I will say, since we're broadcasting live on YouTube, there is that comment feature as well. So if you have any questions that pop up along the way, this doesn't necessarily have to be a one-way presentation. You can enter comments in there just like you would comment on any YouTube video you're watching. We can see those and we can respond to those. We'll certainly leave some time at the end for that. But if something pops into your mind while we are presenting, we can certainly respond to that question right then and there. We like to be a little flexible, as we do this. So as Mr. Figueroa mentioned, this is the year of action for our seniors and by extension for the parents and guardians and families of those seniors. This is the kind of one word that we use to summarize post-secondary actions at any given year. Sometimes it's easier for me just to, if I can boil something down to one word, it's easier for me to understand that. So if that helps you at all in any way, hopefully that can help you out as well. Here's the agenda we got for today. We're going to just do some quick recaps, resources, graduation requirements, and then we'll hit sections 4 through 7 are for the most part, the primary next step options for our students after high school. So we will hit on each of those, some a little more than others, simply because some involve more actions and more steps than others. We will definitely hit the big topic that kind of hangs over a lot of families, paying for what's next, as well as give you some other kind of to-dos and timelines and whatnot. So starting with resources, we like to direct students to our primary resource hub, which is in Schoology, the same place that they spend much of their academic lives. So every senior has a course in Schoology called 2023 Post-Secondary Resources. In there are our names and contact info. There's a link right below our name. So anytime a student wants or needs to catch up with us, they can actually book their own meeting time and date. It automatically populates on our calendar. And that is the simplest way for students who want to discuss things. Of course, they're always welcome to email us for little things here and there, but some things are easier via discussion, and we welcome and encourage that. So the other main resources we have here, you can see listed on the right. Naviance, I'll briefly mention that one because we don't have a standalone slide on it. Naviance, again, is our main exploration tool. So for students who are looking to apply to four-year schools and maybe they're still looking to add some to their application lists, a great tool to do that. There's also some actions our students will take in Naviance. We'll get to those in a few moments as well. We also have a local scholarship list that we have there in this course in Schoology that we will go into a little more detail on as well. So when you hit that first link down, the MCHS College and Career Guide, this is kind of your one-stop shop tool for our students. It's built in Google Slides. It kind of works like a website. Basically, this is the first page or slide, however you want to think about it. You click on whatever topic you're interested in or you need more info about, and that's where you go. So for instance, our students who are going to be applying to four-year schools will click right here on that one. When it's time to apply for financial aid, look for scholarships, we'll look there. We've got a section on transferring from MCC, workforce training, apprenticeships, trades, military, and some other things as well. NCAA student athletes, for students with demonstrated barriers. We've got sections and resources for everyone. Went too far there. Another link that you'll find on that Schoology course is a list of all representatives on the left side here who are going to be coming through our College and Career Center. In the little screenshot I have here, I only have a couple of colleges. However, that list has really expanded since I took the screenshot about a week ago. We have certainly some representatives from four-year schools coming through. We also have military recruiters come through. MCC definitely makes some appearances as well. On any given year, anywhere from 40 to 50% of our students take their next step at MCC. So we definitely lean into those numbers, into those odds, and strengthen our partnership with McHenry County College. We will also have some career speakers coming in as well. Over on the right side here, when you open up this file, you'll see different events, some within our walls, some locally within the community or the county, as well as some virtual opportunities that we feel could be great for our students as well. This list is always getting updated. We do send weekly email and Schoology blasts to students with kind of what's coming up for that week. But if you want to look ahead and see who's coming or what's out there locally, certainly check this out. Here are some specific things that we want to throw at you. These are all in that big list, but these are ones we really wanted to highlight. In late September, we're in September now, folks. Hey, welcome fall. We will be there very soon. Late September, we're going to be taking approximately 45-ish students, first come, first sign up, to Carroll University. It's a four-year school, about an hour, a little over an hour north of here in Waukesha, Wisconsin. So for students who either might be looking to maybe add a school to their list, this one is not just for seniors, heads up, especially if you have any younger children here. We're looking at sophomores through seniors. The first 45-ish that sign up can go. We'll take a bus load up there for a day, take a tour of the campus here from their admissions office. So maybe Carroll is a school your child is considering, or maybe this is just an opportunity for them to get on a college campus. So we try to offer a couple of these a year. We strongly encourage that. No cost either. We're going to circle back to the FAFSA a little later on in the show. Again, that's what you fill out to apply for financial aid. You can start taking action on that as early as October 1st. MCC always hosts a very large four-year college fair. Theirs this year is October 4th from, I believe, 5:30 to 7:30, if my memory serves. So again, for those of you who have seniors here, they're still looking to maybe add some schools to the list, check that out. If you have younger children, I would also encourage you to check that out. The evening of October 21st, we are hosting our annual MTI, Manufacturing Trades and Industry Expo, right here within the walls of McHenry High School. So you can check out local manufacturing opportunities. We're going to have a couple local healthcare ones come in as well. It's going to be a great event. This one is focused a lot more towards students who are looking at those workforce training, trades, apprenticeships options. If your student is looking that route, this is a must-attend event. And something that we are literally just rolling out publicly to students within the last 24 hours. We are going to be taking about 50 students down to Illinois State University in late October. And those students will be students who are strongly considering going into the education field. Passing the mic over to Mr. Figueroa here. Let me pull him back on stage. There he is. Mr. Figueroa, grade level planning.
Thank you, Mr. Mankey. Yes, grade level planning. So I know this week in particular, we've been throwing a lot of post-secondary information to seniors, parents, but we have to keep in mind that we have to, in order to get to that post-secondary destination, we have to make it through our last year of high school. So as we start senior year, seniors have 18 credits to begin. And so by the end of this year, when everything is all said and done, seniors are going to graduate with at least 24 credits. So they will have 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science. They have gym requirements, consumers ed, and even driver's ed is a graduation requirement. Mr. Mankey, next slide. Thank you so much. And then for prospective MCHS Division 1 and 2 student athletes, they also need to meet a certain amount of credits, graduation requirements. So 10 of these 16 NCAA approved courses have had to be completed before the start of senior year. And there's a conversation that Ms. Jacques and I have had with our NCAA prospective students. But if you guys, so sorry, if you guys have any questions regarding where you guys are sitting at in terms of credits or NCAA eligibility, please do not hesitate to reach out to either Mrs. Jacques or myself to give you a breakdown of where you guys are as far as like credit goes. All right, career selection. When it comes to selecting your major, selecting your career path, I know that's kind of an overwhelming thing to think about. So we ask seniors, we ask students to think about their interests. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Think about your skill sets. What are you good at? What are your strengths? Think about your core values. Your core values should align with what you're doing professionally. And then finally, we also ask that you think about your personality. So are you more so a one-on-one kind of person? Are you more of a detail-oriented or big picture kind of person? So just take into consideration all of these 4 things: your interests, skills, values, and personality, because this will allow you to fully immerse yourself in your major as well as your career of choice. And it'll keep you motivated as you're doing your career exploration. And then we have many paths to consider after high school. We don't like to value one over another. We simply like to make seniors aware of all of the paths that they have available to them, whether that be a 2-year college, 4-year university, workforce training, apprenticeship, or even joining the military. We have a ton of paths that one can take after high school, and Mr. Mankey is going to dive deep into all of these 4 paths in a second here.
Thank you, Mr. Figueroa. So yeah, these are the main entry points that our students take in their next step after high school. You know, the gap year is not up there. There's a couple other routes as well, but these, generally stated, we like to see our students do one of these 4 things in their next step, whether it be starting directly at a 4-year school, starting an MCC and transferring to a 4-year school. By the way, the end result for both of those is the same, and that would be a 4-year bachelor's degree, starting in the military or workforce training and trades and apprenticeship opportunities. So military, we always have recruiters coming through on a pretty regular basis. We have a couple coming in early September. One common step that every student who enlists in the military will take will be completing the ASVAB, which is a career aptitude test. It is a little more reading and math intensive than some of our students anticipate. If your student is considering military enlistment, we do have some prep resources online as well as in the College and Career Center. We encourage your students to take a look at that. We do have an ASVAB scheduled here at McHenry High School on October 28th in that morning. That is a day of non-attendance. It's a parent-teacher conference day. So if your student is considering military enlistment and they have not yet taken the ASVAB, you can do it right here. Again, the morning of October 28th. We always encourage students to make sure you include your family in this decision, as it requires a different type of commitment than any of the other next step post-secondary options. Workforce training. On any given year, about 20-ish% of our graduating students take a route that involves workforce training. I kind of loosely define this route as careers that don't necessitate bachelor's degrees. Still very much may involve quote unquote college in some ways. We do strongly encourage every McHenry High School student. We have one common post-secondary goal for them, and that goal is get trained or educated in something more than a high school diploma. Trained or educated in something more than a high school diploma. And that is my phone ringing right there because I forgot to mute it, and that's okay. So these are some common next step options for those looking at workforce training. MCC has a lot more available than you would think there regarding workforce training options. We're going to actually take a quick look at some examples of that in a moment. The McHenry County Manufacturing Consortium is an excellent organization that really pools resources regarding manufacturing across the entire county. And I will say, labor unions are always a great spot for apprenticeships. Very little, if any, debt students take on there. The McHenry County Workforce Network is also a really sneaky good organization here in the county that can help students looking at workforce training routes. They're particularly adept at helping students with identified barriers, whether it be multi-language learners, disability, income levels. Great organization, and along with MCC, among our strongest partners here within the county. So this is just an example of some of the things that our students can do at MCC in 2 years or less. Being honest, I intend this slide to be a little overwhelming, simply to give you the scale of opportunities that are available at MCC. A message that we are trying to reinforce with our students a little more clearly this year is that MCC holds two main purposes. Purpose one is what we normally think of with community colleges. I'm going to do years 1 and 2 of a bachelor's degree locally, and then I'm going to transfer and do years 3 and 4 elsewhere. Still 4 total years, just 2 here, 2 there. However, again, not all careers require bachelor's degrees, and these are examples of things that you can do entirely in 2 years at MCC, because, stating this as explicitly as I can, community colleges are trade schools. They are trade schools. So if your student is considering workforce training trades options, take a good look at what MCC offers. And if they don't have it, we can look at what some of the other local community colleges offer as well. When we think of careers like autos, welding, machining, manufacturing, construction, electrician, these are all things we typically associate with the trades. And these are all careers that you can get trained at MCC or another area community college. You could, using one quick example, you could go to a private automotive trade school and pay about $30,000 to become a certified auto mechanic, or you can enroll in MCC's automotive program, get the exact same training, the exact same certification for about $5,000. So check out what the community colleges offer regarding trades-based training. Briefly stated, again, if MCC doesn't have it, one of the other local community colleges probably does. And if we jump through a hoop together called a joint agreement, we can make sure that you don't pay out of district rates. Because let's say you wanted to do Harper's dental hygiene program. MCC doesn't have it, but they do. If you just enroll directly at Harper, they're going to charge you 3 times as much because you don't live in Harper's district. However, if we jump through this hoop right here at MCC, and it is a very small hoop, they will charge you the same rate as if that program was housed at MCC. So we got ways to make things as affordable for you and your students as possible. Passing things over here to Mrs. Schock. She's going to talk a little bit more about the 4-year college experience, what students are looking for, as well as some of the actions that our students will have to take this year. Mrs. Schock.
Thank you. Yeah, so for those of you who have students who are considering applying to 4-year schools, we have really been pushing them to really find their individual fit, and not necessarily following the footsteps of, specific family members. I know sometimes that's a little heartbreaking, or following their best friend because maybe they have completely different interests. We're really pushing them to find their individual fit. We're encouraging them to visit campuses so that they can make sure that they really understand what the campus layout looks like, where they would be, living for 4 years, eating for 4 years, and making sure that they have everything that they're looking for. So if they are looking for, a big school, we're encouraging them to visit a big school. If they can't actually get to the college that they're considering, I know that a lot of students are actually considering moving out of state. And so we're looking, if you can't get there, then try to find something similar here that you would be able to compare, the same type of size school, public school versus private school. All of these things that are listed on here, we're really encouraging them to make sure that they're finding the best fit for themselves. Next. Thank you. When to apply. We are also talking with your students. We had an AIM meeting the other day for students considering applying to four-year schools, which we had a pretty good turnout to. And our biggest stress to them was you're basically running your own race. We don't want them to feel like they are behind in any way because they're competing against their friends, or their friends are, already done with some applications and they're still figuring out where they want to apply. Every journey is their individual journey, and we really want to empower them to embrace that it's just theirs. They're not in competition or going to be behind if they haven't done exactly what their friend has done. Or an older sibling, perhaps. So definitely for students who are considering applying to four-year schools, they can start applying now. We are encouraging them to do it as soon as possible. So if there are schools that they know for sure that they want to apply to, they certainly can start now. And some of the deadlines that we are talking to them about is mostly just encouraging them to pay attention to their specific school's deadlines. Every college is going to be different. Generally, November 1st is an early action deadline for most four-year schools. And they're also going to take a majority or a large number of their applicants will be accepted in that first chunk. So we really encourage our students to try to get their applications in by November 1st if they're planning to apply early action. There are regular deadlines, so some of them will be as far as December, January. Certain schools, if they're doing like MCC, is going to have rolling admission. There are some other colleges that will do rolling admission also, which just means that they could apply at any time. So we're encouraging them to make sure that they're following their deadline so that they're not missing anything for specific colleges. Application types. So there is many ways that students can apply for college. One of the first ones is doing an institutional application. So for every college, they're going to have a website that has a big button that says apply now, and they can follow the steps that they need to do through the college's website. There's also something called Common App, which we've talked with our students about. It has over 1,000 colleges affiliated with Common App. And the benefit of filling out a Common application is simply stated, it's one application that can fit for multiple colleges. So oftentimes they're doing a lot of their logistic information and putting all of that into multiple websites. Common App kind of streamlines that, and they can put it into one and then apply it to multiple schools as long as they're affiliated with Common App. One common question we get with that are for the fees. Do they have to pay each college's fee if they're still doing only one application through Common App? And you do still have to pay each college's application fee. And we'll talk more about that in another slide. So we encourage, if your student is applying to maybe 4 or more colleges that are affiliated with Common App, it's definitely worth their time to fill out just the Common App and then apply it to the schools. Another one is called Coalition for College, and that's a very similar platform to Common App, just supposed to be streamlining the process for them. And there may be different colleges that are affiliated with Coalition that are not affiliated with Common App. So for Common App, students must match their Naviance accounts and their Common App accounts. So Naviance is a platform that we use that our students are very familiar with, and Common App is the one that they're going to follow some simple steps to match their accounts. That way they can easily request their transcripts from us and we can send them out in a timely fashion. So that's just one way that they can apply for their schools, is through Common App. Next one, fee waivers. Okay, so every college is going to have some type of fee in order to submit your application. They range from $15, some are up to $100, which obviously can get very expensive if your student is planning to apply to multiple schools. If your family qualifies for our free or reduced lunch program or have any other demonstrated financial need, they can communicate that to myself or Mr. Figueroa or Mr. Mankey, whoever they're working with, and we can go ahead and apply the fee waivers so that you do not have to pay the application fees. So if that pertains to you or your student, just make sure that they're talking with us so that we can make sure that those get applied. Requesting transcripts, like I mentioned before, is going to be through Naviance. This should be a platform that they are comfortable in. We are also talking with them in their individual student meetings with myself and Mr. Figueroa and walking them through the process so that they know how to request their transcripts. They can easily track it. So when they request it, it'll say requested. Once we send it, it'll say sent, so they can kind of keep track and know where we are at in the process. A lot of students will ask too about their test scores, and I think that's also on another slide too, but I can touch on it. For test scores, a lot of colleges are test optional, and so we are going to send a transcript without a test score as a default, but then if a student wants us to send their test scores, then we will send the transcript that has their test scores on it. Okay, so this is my next slide. I was ahead of myself. So yes, due to the pandemic a couple of years ago, a lot of colleges started going test optional, meaning they don't need your SAT scores for admissions. They may still look at it for scholarship, specifically merit-based scholarships. They will look at test scores for those. But for standard admissions, it's no longer, in most cases, going to matter what your test score is in order to be admitted to the college. So if your student wants them, if they feel like they did really well, they can just let us know. We'll make sure that we send them with the test scores. If they do not want the test scores on there, then that's going to be the default transcript that we send. All right, essays. So most colleges are going to have some type of an essay requirement for their application. Some of them may have prompts where it's going to tell your student what they should be writing about, and some of them may be vague and just more of like a personal statement. So we encourage students to reach out to anybody, especially once they've finished their essay, to proofread. We get a lot of feedback from college reps that that's one of the most common mistakes, is that they have not had somebody else proofread their essay, and just making sure everything is grammatically correct and makes sense. A lot of times if students are writing it, they're reading it the way they want it to sound and not necessarily looking for the little things. So making sure that they are asking parents or teachers or counselors to just proofread some of those so that they can make sure that their best foot is put forward. Letters of recommendation. This is also going to be requested in Naviance. It's a very simple process. They can click under their colleges. It says letters of recommendation, and then we have a drop down. If they're going to ask a teacher, they can just select the teacher, and then the teacher gets notified that they have a letter of recommendation request. We talked with some of the students during AIM that we are highly encouraging them to give at least a 2 weeks notice to anybody that they are asking to write a letter of recommendation, so that we can make sure that the letter is personable and really reflects them as a student. If we get a request like, hey, I need this by tomorrow, it's really hard for us to make that as personable as possible. If they're asking for more than one letter of recommendation, we also encourage students to try to ask a variety of different types of people. So they could ask a teacher if they have a job, they could ask an employer, a coach, somebody in their church if they're affiliated with church. So just so they can get a picture of, a well-rounded student, but they certainly can ask more than one teacher or counselor, and they can go that route. Something else that we have mentioned to them too is just making sure that they're following directions of the school. So if the school is asking for letters of recommendation, great. If they are not asking for letters of recommendation, we're telling our students, don't send them. You may think that you're going above and beyond the requirements and you're sending, more than you need, but what it's telling the college is that you're not following directions. Especially for U of I, they are one that does not want letters of recommendation. And so if your student is only applying to U of I and they're asking for letters of recommendation, then they've also asked the teacher or counselor to, write them a letter that they actually don't need. So just making sure that they're following all of the directions given by each application in each college. And with this one, I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Mankey.
Muted mic. Try that again. Thank you, Mrs. Schock. I got 2 more slides for you here, and then I'm going to pass things over to our distinguished guest, Kristen from MCC. A couple of slides that I'm trying to work into any parent presentation I've been given. This one has to do with college and income. Again, accessibility is something that we are very mindful of here. We never want income to be a barrier with students looking to continue their training or education beyond high school. That's, again, Ms. Schock gave a great example of that a few moments ago with fee waivers. The schools that you see on the screen right now are all public schools in Illinois. And most of the 4-year public schools in Illinois offer a free tuition program that is based on family income. So the numbers, that kind of number range that you see here across the top, that number differs a little bit school to school. But for instance, at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which is the toughest of the schools on the screen to get into, if you are accepted to the school and your family income is at or under $67,100 for the prior year, you might be able to attend there tuition free. Again, you might be able to attend there tuition free. So for students and families with financial need who do desire to start at a 4-year school, we strongly encourage making sure that at least one, if not a couple, public 4-year schools in Illinois are on their list. Because if we can knock that barrier down and take a huge chunk out of those post-secondary costs, this is a great way to do that. And statistically, about 1/3 of our families could qualify for this. So again, if that's you, make sure you've got at least one, if not a couple, public universities in Illinois on your application list. The other slide I'm going to do here before we pass things over to Ms. Mueller from MCC, disability services. Again, well over 20% of our students have either a 504 or an IEP. In other words, some kind of identified disability. Every public school in the nation, which includes public 4-year schools as well as public 2-year schools such as MCC, are legally required to offer disability services for those who apply and who provide appropriate documentation, which typically would be the copy of the high school 504 or IEP. You simply contact that school's disability services office. You typically do some kind of intake meeting, and then assuming that a student qualifies, then the appropriate accommodations would be available to that student. Private schools don't legally have to offer disability services, but most do, because they know if they don't, they're missing out on a big chunk of potential applicants. Again, if your student has a 504 or an IEP, your case manager can also help with this. And again, in addition to myself, Mr. Figueroa and Mrs. Schock. With that, we're going to pass things over to our distinguished guest, Kristen Mueller from MCC, to talk about what our greatest local partner here has to offer. Kristen.
Thanks, Mr. Mankey. So my name is Kristen Mueller. I work with the admissions office at McHenry County College. And so what I want to do today is spend a little bit of time talking about the resources available at McHenry County College, because having a college in your backyard is great, because there's a lot of different reasons you could come here for a full degree, maybe a class, or maybe one of you, a parent, might want to come and take a class or two, or however you want to use us. So I want to just go over all of the different resources that we have available, and know that we're a contact for you if you do have questions. Next slide, please. So just as an overview, community colleges in Illinois, as McHenry County College is one of them, all of our goals are to be accessible, affordable, and local, nearby. So we all serve the students where we live within our district boundaries. And as families living in the McHenry High School district, you are in district with McHenry County College. So in district students would be paying $111 per credit hour, regardless of what that class is. So if it's a nursing class, if it's an automotive class, a history class, math class, they're all $111 per credit hour. So honestly, depending on whatever you're studying here, it's pretty much, if you're going for a full degree, kind of the same cost across the board. I'll talk more about that. But as Mr. Mankey mentioned, there's 2 main reasons why people come to MCC. Students who are looking for that 4-year experience, but starting those first 2 years at MCC and then transferring on elsewhere. And we have students who are going straight into the workforce, going for trade programs, going for other programs that we offer that are shorter than the 4-year experience. So say, for example, you may not consider marketing a trade, but we do have a 2-year program for marketing if that's something that student wants to go straight into. I'll talk more about that as well. And that we don't have any admissions requirements. So everybody who applies to the college is accepted the next business day or as soon as we can process that application. So we have 3 different start times: fall, spring, and summer. So any credit classes you would need to apply to the college, and once you're accepted, you can start when that semester starts. We have a lot of flexibility. So some students come to take 1 class with us, some students come for a full degree. Sometimes they want part-time schedule. So maybe they're just taking a few classes, 1, 2, or 3 classes, or full-time, which would be 4 or 5 or even 6 classes in a semester to it works with whatever your availability is and whatever your timeline is for completion. We're also financial aid eligible. So I know Mr. Minky will talk more about that, but if you receive any federal or state grant money, that money can go a long way at McHenry County College. A lot of students who apply for the FAFSA can be fully eligible for a full Pell or MAP grant, which would cover your entire cost of attending MCC in a lot of cases. We also have over 100 scholarships available here at the school. So, and it's on top of other aid resources. So if you ever are in a situation where you need a little bit of assistance, please talk with one of us so we can connect you with those resources. So a little bit of quick facts. We mentioned we're about 15 minutes away, so we're really close by. We're kind of on that Crystal Lake Woodstock border if you've never driven past. And we do offer classes in person, online, blended. So a lot of different options for our students. So come check us out. We have a lot of events coming up. We'll mention that in a little bit too. So as far as what are those options that students can take to go forward from MCC. We mentioned transfer. So if a student is transferring for any major, they're going to fall in one of these 4 degrees you see at the top. The Associates in Arts means liberal arts. So that covers pretty much every major. So if a student comes to me and says, do you have a degree in psychology? I'll say, yes, that's the Associates in Arts with a focus major in psychology. Do you have a degree in biology? Yes, we do. That's the Associates in Science with a focus in biology. So all of these majors would fall under these categories: Associates in Arts, Associates in Science, Associates in Engineering Science, and the Associates in Fine Arts for art and music. So depending on what you're studying, I usually sit down and have that conversation with somebody and help match them with what that best starting point is. And then we would tailor those program requirements to meet the major requirements for the school they're transferring on into. Additionally, if they have ideas of which schools they do want to transfer onto, bring that to the conversation early because we want to take a look at those schools and see what classes do they want you to take at MCC. So if you know you want to go to Northern or U of I or Whitewater or Arizona State, bring that to the table because we already have plans laid out about those. So even if we don't have a plan with a school, maybe you want to go off to somewhere in Alaska, cool. We can sit down with you and come up with a plan of what that school needs you to do. So talk with your academic advisor every single semester that you're in college so that you can take the right classes in the right order and complete your degree on time. Now, it's the same story for the Associates in Applied Science. Those are our trade programs or any of our programs that are designed to go straight into the workforce, not to transfer. So this is a student knowing ahead of time, I'm not planning on transferring. I'm planning to go straight to work. And that's what these degrees are available to do. So we have over 30 degrees. And I know Mr. Miki showed you a snapshot of, I think, all of them, but maybe the majority of them. They're called applied science because it's applied knowledge to that particular industry. So there's fewer general education requirements and a lot more very specific classes to that industry area. So if you're taking automotive, it's mostly automotive classes. If you're taking mobile application design and development, it's mostly programming and app development, and so on. So we have over 60 certificate programs as well. So those are shorter versions of the degrees, and those are only classes in that content area. So if you said, yes, I want to do welding, we have a welding certificate that's only welding classes. You do not need to take any English classes or math classes or social sciences, anything like that, only welding. Only CNA, only paramedic, for instance. Now, these can grow. They can stack into those 2-year associates in applied science degrees, if the student either is choosing to start with that certificate and maybe move on later, or say, I'm good with the certificate for now. If I want to pick up more later in my career, you're welcome to do that. So a lot of different options for students, especially if they're kind of on the fence or kind of don't know what they want to do. There's a great way to start in any of these areas, and especially in the first couple of semesters, a lot of flexibility to move around. We also have non-credit classes and programs. So for a student who just wants some quick training to go immediately into a career or a work area, for example, phlebotomy, that's it's 1 semester, 1 class that would train you to be a full phlebotomist to draw blood, or the vet tech assistant. Many other class options we have there. So it's very quick training programs, as well as things that are personal development or professional development. So if you want to brush up on your Excel skills, if you're working professional like me, just want to catch up on what's new, we have some quick training programs for non-credit. And then we have a lot of resources like the four-year institutions have, like our student life, all of our organizations, our athletics programs where students do transfer onto those big universities and play on their varsity teams as well. Free tutoring for all of our students, advising for help with class planning, access and disability services, career services to help students figure out where they want to go, develop resumes, create internships and apprenticeships, which is that on-site training with the industry. So lots of different options that we can help you connect to those next steps. This is another snapshot of those 3 main areas: the transfer area, that 2+2 model for your bachelor's degree, as well as the direct to career programs that are the 2-year programs that go straight into the industry, as well as the shorter certificate programs. Now, little bit of basics on community colleges. I mentioned the residency is based on where you pay your taxes. So you guys pay into the McHenry County College district. Every community college has a district. If you're not sure, go check your tax transcripts, and that'll say which community college you pay your taxes to. You could always give us a call, and we will honestly look it up and say, oh yeah, you live within this district or this other district. So you're paying in-district tuition rates $111 per credit hour. Now, if you were choosing to go straight to, say, the example earlier, you wanted to go into dental hygiene, so you went straight to Harper, but you didn't tell them that you didn't look into joint agreement, you'd just be paying the out-of-district rate at Harper, and that's a lot more expensive. MCC and all of the community colleges do not want to penalize you for career options that we don't offer. So if you're looking for dental hygiene, or I had a student ask me about mortician. Do you have a mortician program? And they wanted to maybe go to Malcolm X that does have it. Yes, yeah, we can get a joint agreement for that. So you can attend that community college and pay the in-district rate instead of the out-of-district rates. That's just a little bit of paperwork you do with MCC since you're in our district. Once you're approved and accepted to the program at the other school, if it's an approved joint agreement program, it's just a little bit of paperwork and you can pay the in-district rate. Now, come check out the college if you haven't been here recently. We've made a lot of changes. We have new building. We have another new building coming up soon. They're breaking ground pretty soon. A lot of big changes and upgrades. So come check us out. We have a lot of events, and I am really encouraged, and I know that your counselors tell you this too. You have to really go to every school that you're considering and walk around, get a feel of it, talk to the students, really check it out, because this is a big investment for you, and you should really get on campus and feel it out. So come walk around. Anytime the building's open, you're welcome to come in and walk around, but also talk with the admissions office if you want a tour of the campus, or come during one of our events and we can show you around and give you a personalized tour. We do have 6 buildings. They're all connected, so you don't have to walk outside in the rain. We have about 7,000 students total. That sounds like a lot, but we're not all here at once. So we have an average class size of about 20, like that picture below. That's the planetarium. There's about 20 students in there. So your teacher gets to know you and you get to know your own teacher, which is a great environment for your first couple of years in college to help you be successful. I mentioned a lot of the resources and engagement opportunities. Remember, when you go to college, don't just go to class and go back to your room or drive back home. You want to get engaged as much as possible. And the more you can access those resources, the better experience you're going to have, the more support you're going to have, the more successful you're going to be. So know that if you choose us or any other school, get engaged as much as possible. Okay, so We mentioned that fee waiver. We don't want to penalize you for any really application fees. We do have a $15 application fee, but this promo code for you is our fee waiver for your school. So write it down, take a screenshot or a photo. It's McHenry. So you can use that when you apply to the college and you'll be able to apply for free. We do have a lot of events coming up, and those are on our webpage here. And I know that your high school does a great job advertising that. But if you have questions, you can always email us at recruit@mchenry.edu or call us at 815-479-7732, and you'll talk with me or some of my other colleagues, and we can help get you those answers. Or do a tour, have a one-on-one conversation, however you want us to help you, we're happy to help. Thanks.
There's that mute thing again. Thank you, Kristen. MCC, again, I would argue, is our strongest local post-secondary partner we have. You really can go there for anything or start anything there if that's the route that you so choose. The last big topic that we're going to hit today has to do with paying for what's next. So I'm going to hit those topics now. I am trying to keep an eye on the comments rolling in as well. I see a question came in a few minutes ago that directly relates to this next topic. That would be the FAFSA. We'll get to the others here in a moment. So basically, I'm going to give you the quick overview about what financial aid is, and then we'll talk about how to apply for it, which is the FAFSA. So when you do apply for financial aid, you're basically applying for grants, which is free money you don't have to pay back. Loans, ugly word, often an ugly evil that some people have to take on. However, we look to minimize them. And then the last one, work study, which is kind of a sneaky good type of financial aid that some people overlook or just simply don't know about. Work study this is the simplified version of it. It is a part-time job on a college campus, but since it's technically a form of financial aid, they don't take taxes out. So let's say your student gets a job working, in the campus library or giving tours or in the cafeteria, or maybe they're running the desk at their residence hall. If it's a work study job and it's $15 an hour, they're actually earning $15 an hour. There is a yes/no question on the FAFSA that reads, "Are you interested in work study?" We strongly encourage your student to answer yes to that. You're not committing to anything. It just puts them on the potential work study list that they can certainly say no thanks to later. So the FAFSA itself, a couple of facts about it. You can see in the image there, that's how financial aid is calculated. It's the federal government, by the way, is what oversees the FAFSA. It's through the Federal Department of Education. So it is a .gov. So they take a look at the cost of attendance. So basically how much it costs to attend any given school that a student applies to. They take that and they subtract from it the estimated family contribution, which is what their formula says that the family can afford to pay. I'm not going to pretend like that number is accurate for many families, but again, that's what their formula does. And then that equals financial need and what you could potentially be eligible for. A couple other things about the FAFSA itself. A couple years ago, the state of Illinois put in a law that indicated that for high schools to release diplomas to students must either complete the FAFSA or complete a paper opt-out form. So again, I'm going to repeat that just because it is a graduation requirement. So all students in Illinois, which includes McHenry High School, must either complete the FAFSA or complete a paper opt-out form, which you would be indicating you are choosing not to complete the FAFSA. For what it's worth, I strongly encourage FAFSA completion because I would hate to see anybody leave money on the table, money that you may not know that you're eligible for, money that could potentially help fund some of those post-secondary costs. There are some four-year schools that will not consider you for their institutional scholarships, so the scholarships that they give out if you haven't completed the FAFSA. This next slide may spark some unease with folks. For those that have not completed the FAFSA before, this is tip for most folks. This is what you have to submit. You have to submit the student's social security number as well as a parent or guardian's social security number. as well as the family tax information from the prior year, as well as an estimate of cash on hand and in the bank accounts. I'm not going to pretend like that is easy information for most people to submit to sources. Again, that is sensitive information. We understand that. The folks that actually receive this information and review it would be the Federal Department of Education, the state and their equivalent Department of Education, as well as any school that a student applies to. We at McHenry High School, we don't see what you submit, nor do we want to see what you submit. We simply get a report indicating yes or no, the student has completed the FAFSA. And that's what we use, again, to double check for that graduation requirement. I encourage completing the FAFSA. We did have some folks last year who didn't complete it because of being just very honest here, mistrust in institutions, reluctance to submit the information that's on the screen right now. As much as I possibly can, I extend empathy to those concerns. And again, this is sensitive information that most folks don't like talking about, letting alone submitting, to another source. For whatever it's worth, I have never heard, read, experienced anything negative happening to anyone who submitted the FAFSA. I've never heard of, identity theft or fraud or anything along those lines, or anything else that can come along with submitting sensitive information to certain institutions. If you have concerns about that, I more than welcome, a meeting, talking on the phone, other communication. Again, ultimately, it's your choice as to whether you complete the FAFSA or not. Again, if you choose not to, you will have to fill out the opt-out form just to make sure that you check that box for graduation. Go into a couple of the questions that we have here. One of the questions that relates to this: a student has divorced parents. How do they fill out the FAFSA? In that scenario, you quite simply provide the parent's income who that student has lived with more days over the prior year. So if a student is with parent A 51% of the time and parent B 49% of the time, you put in parent A's information. The same thing with the question about savings and checking balances. Again, that would be, actually, I misread that one there. That would be parents and students who are in that household. I'll come back to the other questions that are there in the chat in a moment, but again, just making sure that we hit the ones that are relevant to this topic. This slide, quite simply, if your student does not have social security numbers and or parents, this is one workaround. This will apply to some families at McHenry High School, not too many. However, if that is a concern to you, again, come to myself, Mr. Figueroa, or Mrs. Schock, and we can help you with that. Scholarships. The other way that families can help fund and lower that cost and that potential debt from your next educational steps. On the left side of the column here are typically the places where you find scholarships. Working my way up the list, occasionally you'll find them through different connections. Sometimes, for instance, people's churches offer scholarships. But again, you don't know that unless you ask or you inquire about it. Sometimes parent employers will offer scholarships. National scholarships those tend to be the ones that people think of. So, I'm going to apply for the Coca-Cola Foundation Award. That's a national scholarship that folks from across the country apply to. There's free search engines for that. We've got resources in the College Career Center. We encourage you look at a few sources and see if you find things you'd be a candidate for. But being completely honest with you, the first two bullet points on the left side are where most folks' scholarship money comes from. The first one, institutional scholarships. Those are awards that come directly from the schools themselves. So MCC, for instance, has well over 100 scholarships from them to their students. So again, you always want to check with whatever a school is offering. And a great question that I encourage planting in your students' brains to ask to any school, MCC, community college is included, they're applying to, is how can I make sure I am applying for every one of your scholarships that I might be eligible for or that I might be a candidate for? That is a question we love to see students asking colleges and such. Local scholarships are quite literally scholarships offered by local organizations. So the McHenry Kiwanis Club, the McHenry Lions Club. the Woodstock Fine Arts Association, which offers county-wide scholarships. So what do we have here in the community, in the county? In some circumstances, we'll include some state-level ones in there as well. But again, there is a list of those in that Schoology course that we referenced earlier. Humor me for a moment. I'm going to tell a super quick story just to illustrate how students can be candidates for scholarships they might not think they are. Last year, we had a scholarship from the McHenry Lions Club. They were giving away 2 $500 scholarships, and they were just for students going into workforce training options. So primarily students going into those associates and applied science degrees, so the 2-year non-transfer degrees that Kristen mentioned earlier, or the certificate programs that Kristen mentioned earlier. We had 2 students apply for those 2 awards. So you can guess who got $500 each. It was the 2 students who applied for the 2 awards. One of the students just started an MCC in their non-transfer marketing program. She had a GPA in the mid-3s, solid student, was an engaged student. The other student graduated from one of our alternative programs, had a GPA under 2, and just began MCC's autos program. So the moral of that story is you never know who else is or isn't applying. You also don't know how the people evaluating these scholarships might connect with your story and your background. So if your student meets the minimum criteria for any of these scholarships, especially these local ones, tell them to apply, because you never know, who walks away with these things. This gentleman right here with some FAFSA specific questions can be an excellent resource as well. Often families have questions about the FAFSA. The Illinois Student Assistance Commission is another one of our strong partners. Their whole purpose of existence is to help people fund their next steps in college. So FAFSA completion, he's again a great resource we have. We will be offering a few FAFSA completion nights here at McHenry High School. MCC offers them at MCC. You do not have to be considering attending MCC to use some of their services, such as FAFSA completion. Right here, these are just some kind of basic to-dos for this semester. This one admittedly does lean a little bit more into college students who are looking at college, starting at 4-year schools. And of all those next step options, that's the option that will require the most immediate action. As you peruse that, I am going to pull the rest of my colleagues back on screen here. So heads up to my colleagues. And I'm going to go through some of the other questions that have been posed to us, and we can kind of jump in there. So one question: are many universities waiving SAT scores to qualify for admission? Ms. Schock, would you care to take that one regarding the test optional with SAT?
Yes. And yes, the answer is yes. Many colleges are still waiving SAT requirements. Students can still choose to send their SAT scores if they want to, but for admissions purposes, many colleges are not requiring the SAT to be sent. We just encourage your students to be sure that they're, paying attention to each college specifically and what they're asking for.
All right, excellent. Thank you. We got another one. If a student is a senior athlete in a fall sport, which they're hoping to get offers to play in college, is there a certain strategy in how they should apply to colleges? That is a very specific one for a very specific type of audience. First of all, if your student has not already, make sure that they have that their counselor and or myself are aware of that. We often have students who will kind of go through our system and maybe not share with us that they're looking to be prospective student athletes. So if they have not already shared that, please encourage them to do that. That also includes registering with the NCAA Eligibility Center. For any prospective Division I or Division II NCAA athlete must register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. From our perspective, we also have to make sure that they've taken enough NCAA approved courses in high school. Getting to the second part of your question, is there a certain strategy in how they should apply to colleges? I'm going to throw one more resource in there as well. That would be Mr. Beard, our new athletic director. When it comes to like the kind of the student athlete equation there, the counseling team, myself included, we tend to help students more on the student part of sides. And then Mr. Beard would be an excellent resource for the athlete side of things. So if your student isn't sure whether or not they're going to get any offers, I would encourage you, at least short term, maybe take kind of a spread approach. Peg some schools that maybe your student has already had contact with or might hope to get contact with, as well as a couple sort of safety schools. I'll frame it that way in slightly a different context than we normally use the term safety schools, but schools that your student would be okay attending regardless of whether they're participating or engaging as a student athlete. To that parent, you are more than welcome to follow up with us individually, because that we'll get into some nitty gritty there that doesn't apply to probably as many other folks on this contact. But again, we welcome your individual questions. Can a step parent fill out the FAFSA? Son lives with mom 50% and us 50%. Kristen, is that one that you would run across, or was that one that you would typically run through your financial aid office?
I would contact, you know what, the FAFSA also has a great resource center through the federal student aid website. So they would really be the final answer to that question. My understanding, and maybe I shouldn't say anything, but I think it's then, if it's 50-50, it's the parent that would support the student more.
Yeah.
I would say double check the FAFSA website.
That sounds familiar to me as well. Again, I'll go back in our slides a couple here. For some of those super FAFSA specific questions, that's where Sean from ISAC would be an excellent resource. Again, in all of our different roles, Ms. Schock, Mr. Figueroa, a slice of their job is financial aid. A slightly larger slice of my job is financial aid. With Kristen, the same thing. However, the folks at the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, that is their entire job, is to help folks navigate the FAFSA, especially some of those situational ones. So for our parents who threw that question at us, that is a great question, and one that I could say with a high degree of certainty that what Kristen said is accurate. But I would double check that either with the federal student aid's own resources, and there are lots of them there, or just with Sean from the Illinois Students Assistance Commission as well. I will pause for a moment and see if any other parents want to throw any other questions here into the chat. So I'll give another 30, 60 seconds or so for anybody else who cares to throw anything else in the chat here. And I'll go back to this screen right here as far as some basic actions. For those, again, with the FAFSA, you can start taking action on that as early as October 1st. I would encourage you to start gathering some of that information in the meantime, but you can start taking action on it on October 1st. If you're listening and your student is a December grad, we're actually going to have a mandatory meeting for those students a week from tomorrow during AIM and the College and Career Center, because your action and timelines obviously is going to be a little more accelerated than those who are going to be here for both semesters of senior year. Just had another question pop up. If one divorced parent makes considerably less, can we use that parent for the FAFSA? Again, ultimately, it's the way it's written is that it's whoever the student lives with more, during that prior year, even if it's, 50.1% versus 49.9%. So I will simply state that.
I'm going to jump into,
yeah, sure.
I've heard in the past, is it whomever claims them on their taxes for that prior year, like whatever year of taxes they're using, whoever claims the student on that year?
That can factor in as well, but everything that I've been told, it comes back to who the student resides with.
Okay.
Again, going back to Sean from ISAC, again, he would be another one who can give you the 100% definitive answer versus our 99% definitive answer. Again, pausing for another moment, see if any other questions pop up. Again, we remind you that our contact information is all in that Schoology course. When you or your student is in Schoology and they click on courses, just look for this orange arrow icon, and that is the course we run. You'll see our contact information there, as well as the other online resources that we have referenced. At this point, I think we will wrap things up. We are grateful for your participation and engagement. We are here to support you in a lot of ways, just as much as your students. For those of you who this is your first rodeo, we are here for you. This can be confusing at times. It can be frustrating at times. We get that. We hear that. Please, throw questions at us, lean on us for support. Again, we're here just as much for you in some ways as we are for your students. With that being said, thank you to Kristen from MCC for being with us today. Thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Mr. Figueroa and Ms. Schock as well. And I'm Mr. Mankey. We look forward to helping you as well as helping you look forward to what is next. Take care.